Welcome everyone to our latest Star Trek. We are entering the world of Star Trek Voyager, and we are back with episode 2, Parallax, and we are joined with Voyager aficionado herself, Skycap. Welcome, because we can't have a Voyager episode without inflating the rating slightly with your personal touch. And joining me as always, Shy on my right, and stars below me. Too many of you have names beginning with like Shy, Skylight. Like, it always throws me every time. But yes. So, second episode of Voyager, and I have to say this, I think it's probably one of the better second episodes we've watched. If you haven't watched our watch along, please, I'll post up soon. But yeah. It's definitely one of the better second episodes. Certainly since we've just come off watching the TNG second and third episodes, it's a bit like, this was interesting. This was good.
It has its moments. I would say that this is more of a... there are individual moments that I really, really like about this episode, but overall, I don't think it hangs together as something particularly interesting. There's just a lot of good character work in it. I think that the overall, quote-unquote, mystery is just not very involving.
There's a lot of jargon in this. A lot of techno-babble, kind of.
Okay, so let's get it out of the way right quick, right? Warp particles is fucking nonsense.
Warp particles!
Means nothing.
What was the name of that beam they used? A Dechion beam.
Dechion beam.
Yeah.
I don't think that's an actual exotic particle. I would be happy to be corrected, but even so, I am certain it does not do anything to do with quantum singularities.
Just never get it confused. No, just never cross it with a baryon sweep and we'll be fine.
It's 10 eons. It's a dechion.
Oh, it's a very wide beam.
Yeah.
The wavelength
a very long-lasting beam.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not as funny as the TNG second episode.
No.
Yeah, it's not.
True.
It's lacking humour. It does have that kind of early... We kind of get something that we're trying to go for with the Maquis and Starfleet sort of tensions, don't we? Which was completely abandoned, like, after the first season. But we get that kind of initial, like, this is the Maquis crew, this is the Starfleet crew. And there was a good conversation with Chakotay and, I nearly said Picard, Janeway in the ready room, where Chakotay is just like, well, I'm not going to be your token Maquis. Which I think Stasi said, no, he ends up being the token Indian guy played by a Mexican. But okay, we'll jump over that part. But yeah,
this episode's trying a lot to set Chakotay up to be sort of kind of like the rough and tumble George Clooney,
the Maverick,
gravelly Maverick, sexy guy. But it kind of traps him in between places. He's not quite McKee, he's not quite Starfleet. So. For me, it didn't quite land.
That, I think, is what I love about it, though. Because he really is like a liaison between the two groups. And if they had kept that tension, that dynamic going, I think it could have been really effective.
I think the part of the problem with the whole Starfleet versus Maquis dynamic and why I feel like it almost immediately starts to like fade away is something really simple. Costuming. The instant you put every single member of the Maquis in a Starfleet uniform, you immediately lose their individuality, you immediately lose a visual identifier of a struggle, you immediately concede the visual language and say, yeah, we've assimilated, who gives a fuck? And it's like, yeah, they can say that they're not Starfleet, and it's like, yeah, sure, you can act not Starfleet, but you're wearing the uniform. You still turn up, you've got the pips, like, they should be wearing their Maquis outfits. That's what they should be doing.
Should they have done like a Clone Wars thing where they've each customized their uniform differently? Like one guy's wearing a bandana, the other one has like paint on the side of his
that would have been amazing. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, because like that would fit way more with the idea of an actual struggle. Because the instant that you cede visual language, you've basically given up the actual fight. Because no one's wearing their cool, flashy. I'm wearing a rug on my vest. No one's wearing shoulder pads. Everyone is just immediately ceded over to the Starfleet uniform. And guess what? The Starfleet uniform is great, but you've capitulated. You've admitted that you are weaker than the Starfleet powers. You are, under their sway. You don't have your own say.
Yeah,
it
doesn't
complain all you want, but sorry. guy.
Yeah, no, I mean, it doesn't make sense. Like you said, it's a visual thing, but also it just doesn't make sense from a story standpoint that you've got this resistance group that just immediately is like, fine, we'll wear your uniforms and fall in line.
They should have
It's
had
not
all
Should
the,
have been.
they should have had all the McKee people have their sleeves rolled up, and then all the Starfleet people just had their sleeves down. Like that would have been
No.
defining.
Shirts and skins, yeah.
There should have been a running subplot about how like someone has like sabotaged all of the replicators and like the food, the what's it, the material synthesizers, so that it destroys all Maquis clothing the instant it comes out the replicator, and it's like, oh, they're taking away our visual identity, and then it turns out it was Tuvok or someone.
It comes to the point of like, you know, Starfleet's own version of assimilation, which, you know, various episodes have accused it being, you know, their own version of the Borg, where everyone has to conform. You have to be part of the Starfleet in this Federation sort of human-centric kind of, you know, ideal. But yeah, I have this was sort of handled quite interestingly through the lens of Torres being, you know, the sort of very rebel, and in Skycap you are probably the biggest Torres fan I know.
I like to think so.
Yeah. Tell us about, like, what did you think of her portrayal in this episode compared to sort of where you know she ends up going?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting. You see her like kind of insecurity, her like sort of vulnerability. I think you see that a lot in this episode, even how early it is. You know, that she puts on a tough act and is literally punching people, but and she says she doesn't care what people think of her, but she clearly does. I think that, you know, to introduce the character this way, I think was pretty effective and consistent with where she goes in later seasons.
Yeah, I would definitely agree that Torres is one of the more consistently written characters. The fact that she knows instantly who Chapman is when Janeway brings him up is like a you cared about that a lot.
Her professor, yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think this is one of the best Torres episodes, actually. You know, we talked about this during the watch along, but and you made fun of warp particles already, but that scene is actually one of Torres' best scenes.
Yeah.
And we wish they had more of that interplay between Janeway and Torres. You know, technobabble, people make fun of technobabble all the time, but if it's in the context of character growth and interpersonal interaction in a scene, it's fine. They could be saying anything. You know, a famous acting exercise is you just throw away the script and you just say anything, but you're doing it with the intention of the characters. And this is essentially that. And you kind of wish that Janeway and Torres had interacted more like that for the rest of the series, but they didn't really.
Definitely.
Yeah, I can think of a few episodes. I think Barge of the Dead is sort of one of the biggest highlights of the Janeway-Torres relationship, but it's not really given as much focus as, say, Janeway and Tuvok or Chakotay and Torres, which is sort of like, they break them down into these different groups, and I always appreciate getting to see the more uncommon relationships as opposed to where everyone kind of, they fall into their little cliques and their little friend groups, so you really see them kind of venture out of that, and it's like, you want to see the odd couples, you know, not just the one that the series has decided is the odd couple, which is always like, well, in the early series, it's Paris and Neelix, and then it's Tuvok and Paris, or Tuvok and Neelix. It's a lot of Neelix.
Yeah, Janeway's an engineering nerd, right? So they always come back to Picard's archaeology nerdery. But Janeway doesn't get as much engineering nerdery showcasing on the show, for me at least. But
I think there was, you know,
she gets a few moments of science. But
sure.
There was a moment here, though, like, that I think is such a juxtaposition, which could have been smoothed out maybe a little bit, was from Janeway going like, you know, I'm not having this Maquis woman on any part anywhere near my command crew, and they had a big philosophical debate about, you know, the Maquis versus the Starfleet and where they should sit in the hierarchy, to where Janeway's visibly excited by everything in Taurus. She just switches, she goes from who is this woman to, oh my god, she's talking so much sense, like she's like absolutely flips and go, you're talking my language, do you want to be the chief engineer? Yeah. Actually, fuck it, do you want to be first officer? Never mind this Chakotay guy, he's giving me too much trouble.
What a show that would have been.
Yeah, exactly.
I would have actually kind of preferred that dynamic, you know, like actual like female.
She would have given her, you know, imagine Scorpion with Taurus giving her the, you know, giving her shit for.
Oh, they would have gotten into blows. Like they would have actually had like a fight. That would have been awesome. Okay, I have a question for you, and this kind of only just occurred to me, and it ties back to something I brought up during the watch along, which is that. So Taurus is one of those characters who I think most people think really, really fondly of, because she's like quite well written. I think Roxanne Dawson gives like a really good performance pretty much in every episode, even if she doesn't have a lot to do. But there are like odd things about her that you have to stop and think about it. So for one, she's Marquis, but we don't really know why she's Marquis. It's just sort of general disaffection with Starfleet, but it's not like an inciting incident like the loss of the Native American colony for Chakotay, or Lorne Suda's psychopathy, or what's going on with Seska. They all have a reason that is like a set thing of this is why I joined the Marquis. Like Torres was just sort of like she just kind of fell into it, which is a bit odd when you think about it. And I'm also thinking about her character traits of like impulsive, intelligent, resourceful, very emotive, angry, and I'm wondering like what attracts that character to engineering? What naturally leads someone with destructive impulses to want to fix and create? And I don't know if they ever really go into that.
Have you? I mean, you've never taken your car to a mechanic's workshop, have you? Like, it's completely understandable.
No,
I've seen some very angry people working on my car.
It's the B.A. Baracus syndrome.
Okay.
Well, it's just that interesting thing of like a character being the sum of their contradictions. Like, I feel like we could have gotten more on that of Obolano.
How about some fun facts? This was directed by Kim Friedman, who also directed The Wire from Deep Space Nine, The Jem'Hadar and The Search, some very good episodes, Blaze for Glory, and also from Voyager, early seasons, Cathexis, Jetrel, and Twisted. So a few 50-50 episodes here. Twisted.
Jetrel's not great either.
Yeah.
I got excited. I thought you meant they had directed The Wire, the HBO show.
The actual The Wire.
No.
I was like, oh, really?
Yeah, no.
That's a very different show.
This one was written by Jim Trombetta, written and then heavily adapted by Brandon Braga. Jim Trombetta also did The Forsaken, Rivals, and Playing God from DS9. But this was very
also
heavily
related to Joe Trombonata.
Yeah, Trombetta. Yeah, it sounds like a Pokemon, doesn't it? Go, Trombetta. It's a small elephant.
Cousin Bayonetta.
Yeah. Anyway, so this is a quote from Brandon Braga, which explains so much about this episode, because the Technobabble was very much looping and explaining and putting quantum in front of everything for no real reason, but this is literally from the words of Brandon Braga. Normally, the way we write stories is we come up with what we want to do dramatically, and we add science later, and it works out much better that way. Though a quantum singularity is a mouthful, I decided to use it anyway, but I literally could have called it a quantum fissure, a quantum sinkhole, anything. Who cares? Who really cares? He actually said that. And that kind of explains so much about this episode, because the writer, Jim Trombetta, is on record as saying like he wanted to do a very deep science episode to be sort of like, it was going to be very heavy science fiction.
You came to the wrong show, buddy.
You very much did. A lot of the concepts had to be thrown out because they weren't feasible with modern production, and also there was harder to convey the story behind. So
well, yeah, he isn't making Interstellar here.
Exactly.
He tried. This is their attempt, essentially.
Kind of, yeah. And I think there's some good concepts in there, but yeah, I think that for one thing, Star Trek Technobabble is very much a known meme at this point. But I think this one definitely amplifies the worst parts of it, of just saying like, yeah, we're just gonna throw anything out there like Dechion particles and there's quantum singularities, and even the scene where Paris is just like, What the how now? The who now? But over there with the what now? Am I making any sense? And like no, but it's fine. No one understands this. Not even the people who wrote it.
Well, I'm also like thinking about how it shakes out in terms of the other big time episode that everyone thinks of when they think of Trek. It's like Cause and Effect, where Geordi has that briefing scene where he goes over how the time loop works. And that scene is so much less technobabble-y. It's way more about like explaining the core concept, why it's a problem, and how they might potentially fix it. Whereas here, they kind of, like you said, they talk themselves into circles, and it's like
really do.
It is a weird mishmash of there's a really good dramatic concept here with the conflict between Torres and Janeway, and they're coming to understand each other. But if you would, like you say, if they were writing this from the ground up to be about the drama rather than coming at it from the scientific angle, you could have done a much better job of picking an anomaly that fits that analogy, some kind of thing that had to be met or understood from a different point of view, something like that. Whereas here it's just a lot of arguing, and then eventually someone is right, and it's like, well, that's very much a flattening of what is of a much more interesting concept. But that's Voyager in a nutshell in some ways.
Well, that's because Stephen Hawking's A Brief History of Time didn't come out till 1988. So from then on, afterwards, everyone wanted to squeeze every possible freaking temporal mechanics buzzword into their scripts. So TNG had the luxury of not having to deal with that.
True.
So yeah, go on.
I think we need to talk about Joe Carey.
Oh yes.
And so I like Joe Carey as a concept, right? I think that like I have a
Hey Stars, I like you as a concept. I like you as a concept, dude.
Yeah, that's all right. I don't like you conceptually, but I get along with you in actual real life. I love the concept of the Starfleet everyman, the guy who comes into work 9 to 5. He's like a career officer. He has no ambitions about being in command. He's probably going to sit in there with the Operations Yellow his entire life. He's a decent guy, and like he doesn't cause problems. He's maybe a little bit stiff, right? That's
you're
a
just describing my life. What are you doing? This is my work. Will you stop it?
This is my life. I like that concept, and O'Brien is like the platonic ideal of that concept, right? He was on TNG, and then that got amplified in DS9, which is why he suffers so much. And Carey, I think, definitely had the potential to be that, but I don't think they do him a ton of favors in his introduction here, where he alternates between, yeah, you're totally coming at us from the right angle. She did nearly break your nose and drive bone into your brain, to you're being kind of a smarmy prick about things in ways you maybe shouldn't be. And even though I know you have the right to be like that, you're being kind of a dick about it. There's a right way and a wrong way to be a dick about these things. And I feel like Carey, I don't know if it's the direction or the acting or the writing, but it fails him in some ways. And it's like, I don't feel like he comes across as strongly in the end as maybe they wanted him to.
Well, the actor did it to himself by not using an Irish and or Scottish accent. Ultimately. He's clearly designed. You have this redheaded engineer on Voyager, ginger engineer, and nothing. No UK accent whatsoever.
I think
they should have split the difference and made him Welsh.
I think what it is, it's to contrast him with Taurus, who is quite an animated character, who is quite a personality defined. They need someone everyman to go opposite her. If he's got a character personality, people might like him, and we can't be having that.
Well, you kind of are meant to like him by the end, right? Because they come to an understanding, and he's like, "Oh, you'll never get anything unless my best." It's meant to be a moment of reconciliation, and he turns up multiple times in the future, and he's a helpful dude who never, hurt anybody. He has a really unfortunate end, and it's like I don't know, they just kind of, they have their feet in two different camps here, and they don't settle on one the other, and it's a bit of a shame for him.
If I were going to play devil's advocate for Joe Carey, I would say that scene where he's being a prick. And he says, like, you don't speak in the meeting unless you're spoken to.
Yeah.
I think that's somebody who really is showing that he's not a great leader, but he's trying to play the part. He's trying to do what he thinks he needs to do to establish order and just not being very convincing about it.
That would be my best defense. Yeah, I've known managers like that. You say something you don't need to say, it, but they just want to say it to... Yeah, you can see that.
Yeah.
I like that concept, actually, of him being thrust into the circumstance and feeling like he has to be a leader despite not having the actual acumen to do it, whereas Torres, despite not coming from the same background, having the energy and drive to actually do it. I feel like maybe they could have drilled in a bit harder on the concept of him. They should have drilled a bit harder into Carey as a character and more about what his deficiencies and his strengths versus talking about Dekion beams and... like, admittedly funny sight gags with the Doctor, but
Can we?
There's a lot going on in this episode.
Yes. Can we also talk about Neelix's lack of prosthetics this episode? He seemed to be a little bit less hairy. I think you noticed it.
The hair and the makeup on almost everybody is like so jarring if you've seen the later episodes.
But that's true of Star Trek across the board. Every second episode, everyone's hair is always going through some sort of transition.
True.
They're evolving. And him dragging Kess off the side just to say, what's a temporal anomaly? Well, a temporal anomaly. Let me tell you about it.
The creep starts early. Yeah.
Watch this Troy McClure presentation. Starring Neelix and Kess. So, Kess, you want to get into hydroponics? Here, check my soil samples.
You know what? No, don't do this. But let's talk about that moment, right? Between the Doctor and Kess, like the actual foundation of one of the most interesting and important relationships on Voyager, I'd say, actually. Those two have really nice chemistry. Like, I genuinely believe every word that they say to each other, which is like so much more than I can say between. Because I like Ethan Phillips and I like Jennifer
He's
Lien.
great.
They do not work in the same room together. They do not work at all. Whereas, like, they work with every other character really well. And I feel like Jennifer Lien really got like a bum deal getting saddled with that because it hurts her character so much that she never really recovers. Like, man, they should have just like brought her on as a completely separate entity and had her deal almost exclusively with the Doctor. And I feel like people would look upon her much more favorably because she's really good in that scene. She's the right mix of, you know, wide-eyed, idealistic, but also I'm going to treat this with a realistic thing. Go, well, don't you have a name? You know, like, I'm going to treat you like a human being, and I don't understand what you are, but I know you're different to me. Like, she's trying to treat him equally in like a crew that doesn't really do that, which I appreciate.
Yeah, because she's literally 2 years old and had grown up in a cave, so she should have the like wide-eyed, you know, awe, sense of awe. She should be the audience stand-in for like, oh, look at all this amazing stuff we're seeing. But no, she's just Neelix's grooming project.
You grew up on a planet without water. How about you handle the hydroponics project? Yes, perfect, Janeway. Well done. You're 2 years old.
They come into Cargo Bay 2, and she's just like drenching herself in water. Like,
I don't know what a pipe is. What's pressure?
The Lizard Queen.
Have we got any plumbers?
No, they had water. They had all the dune water underground.
Yeah, they had.
That's true. Yeah, she was from that part.
I did think it was really funny how she and Neelix walk into the conference room and demand a seat at the table, and then she has an idea, and Janeway says, "Do it," and she's like, "Me?"
Oh yeah.
Did you guys catch that?
No, I meant you should do it. I should just give you the idea, and then you take responsibility.
I'm just here because Neelix told me to come.
Yeah, he dragged me in here, literally
Literally did, yeah.
by the arm
Yes.
to the. And why do you have the shuffleboard conference table? What is with the conference table? Why does it have like a little mini bowling alley?
I think it's so you can slide a pad.
No, it's roulette table.
That's true, baby.
I mean, I really
Roulette
do roll
table.
dice.
Yeah.
I think that's happened a few times.
I really do feel like I know why it's not a thing, but if Voyager were made with today's budget, you would absolutely have that table displaying like holographic things and doing what Astrometrics does later on in like the series, right, where you actually get a 3D image and they can talk about it.
They did it in
and point at
TNG.
things.
TNG even had the little holographic displays occasionally. There's a
Very infrequently.
Yeah.
It's like I can think of like 2 episodes where they actually do it from the table. But like it would have been a cool way to show that Voyager's more technologically advanced and justify all that space in the actual room and why you need to, you know, go from the bridge to the conference room to the bridge to the conference room, which they did a few times in this episode.
Yeah, they could have stuck an acutogram in the middle of that table. It would have been pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like just a little static lit up acutogram there.
Or just, you know,
Make
Chakotay
it
holding
look
up
a little less
slides.
boring.
Just occasionally just make it done. Just saying. There's some good shake in this episode.
Now, you
though.
know what?
First time. Oh, sorry, go on.
They should have had like Chakotay be really, really pouty and annoyed that like Janeway had rightfully like, you know, thrown down his appointee to the engineering staff, and he turns up to the meeting, but he only speaks in like placards that he has to write. He refuses to
Like, I'm not talking to the I'm not talking to the captain right now. Tuvok, tell the captain there's an anomaly nearby.
Yeah. He just sits there sipping his pajuta,
Oh yeah.
which was introduced and dismissed in this episode.
Yeah, all of us had to kind of go like, what is pajuta? Is that like Ractagino? I think it's a native Indian drink done by some sterling work by the resident native Indian researcher on this particular
Mr.
site.
Jamake Highwater, I believe his name is.
Yeah, less said about them, the better. Also, the first appearance of Seska this episode in the blue uniform. Automatically, as soon as you see her plotting to take down the ship.
Yes, whispering into towards his ears,
Yeah.
causing all sorts of trouble.
Yeah, already the Cardassian scales are starting to show. Oops, spoilers, sorry. For this old show.
Spoilers for this 30-year-old show.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, that actually is a huge spoiler for people who haven't like watched Voyager at all. Like,
Yeah, I mean, come on.
that's a huge reveal.
You're not watching these reviews because you just want to watch this for the first time. Come on. Okay, let's go for best and worst moments. I'm going to say, let's start with best moments. Let's go with our guest, Sky. Best moment, please.
Ooh, why thank you. I'm gonna steal Stars's, I think, but I really did love that scene with Kess and the EMH. I thought it was like a really nice, quiet moment. It was really well played, and I do love the dynamic that they develop, and the fact that they planted those seeds so early is like really gratifying.
Yeah, they planted them in hydroponics.
Nice.
With the soil samples.
with the soil samples that the doctor convenently had in those
They
little
were
candy
pre-prepared, yeah.
I like how he was just like, you asked me for soil samples. Here. Just like, I have them prepared.
Yeah,
Some I made earlier. And here's
he's
your
like,
case.
all right, Cass, here you go. just randomly had it.
She didn't specify what kind of soil samples. That could have been anything.
Nitrogenated.
Oh, that's right.
And he just had them.
They were right there. Yeah, like
Nitrogen. I only have unnitrogenated soil samples.
Be on the spot, how dare you?
Okay, Shy.
Well, what was your worst moment, Sky?
Oh,
Are we just doing
We'll
best
do
moments
best first. Let's do best first, and then we'll
Okay.
come on.
My best moment is it's the warp particle scene. You know, it's the two of them sort of like building up and bantering back and forth, and they come close together, and they're like warp particles.
I was
and
waiting.
my worst moment
Oh god, hang on.
is that they didn't immediately start making out afterwards. And clearly, like that's the meet cute
Listen,
moment.
please
Janeway and
keep
Torres
your
should-
stuff to the fan fiction forums. Yeah, just put it over there. Okay. That was interesting because I was expecting someone like the typical TV thing for someone to go in English, please. You know, the typical trope of someone doing that, but no one did. So we were just expected to believe everything they say. Stars, best moment.
Best moment, I would probably have to say the quiet moment in the shuttle with Janeway and Torres, where she's talking about the professor and like her qualifications and non-qualifications for being chief engineer. Because I just appreciate. I'm a sucker for the type of scene where it's like, you know, you've got the rebellious character who doesn't believe that anyone believes in them, and then the person who is initially seeming opposed to them entirely is like, no, I did actually bother to read your file. I know that there's something worthwhile in you. I'm just giving you a
How
hard
did you
time because
get-
I feel like you need that.
She turns around and goes, "How did you get my file? Like, for fuck's sake, she was chasing you across the Badlands. Of course they knew everything about you." It's a
We
multi-million
literally had
dollar
Tuvok
starship.
stationed on your fucking ship. You'd think we didn't run a background check.
Yes.
But it's just... Maybe I'm just a sucker for Torres getting some actual affirmation, because she doesn't get a ton of it. Like, you know, she deserves way more for all of her problems and all the, you know, like self-image issues that she has to deal with. And it's just nice to see the beginnings of Janeway, like, you know, she so often vacillates between I need to be the hard ass and I need to be the mother to the crew. And I appreciate that they keep the sort of the maternal angle, like, you know, firmly in the back seat. They don't immediately slide into it, which would have been really easy. I imagine probably Kate Mulgrew had a degree of say into that, because she also wanted, like, you know, no romance. She wanted to establish Janeway as a command presence in her own right. But you can see the beginnings of that maternal relationship she absolutely does develop with Torres, where by Barge of the Dead, like, she says, you know, you remind me a lot of my mother, and like they have that kind of a dynamic going. So that probably been the best moment.
Okay.
How about you, Idol?
I really like the Janeway Chakotay scene where he's, you know, you start to see that divisive element between the Marquis and the Starfleet crew, and he kind of grills her about it again. You know, am I just the token Marquis officer? And like, what about her? And what about all these crew? Are they never going to have positions of command? I kind of liked that dynamic. It is a shame that it just never carried on, or apart from, I think, one episode where you see sort of like, you know, the Marquis training thing with Chell and, you know, I forget the name of it, where Tuvok has to take them through their
Learning
paces.
curve,
Learning
yeah.
curve, that's the one, yes. Yeah, apart from that episode, you know, you just never see it else. So it's nice to see that tension between Chakotay and Janeway, which kind of you never see again, really. He kind of, until Scorpion, he pretty much yes-mans her. But yeah, it's yeah, that was probably my favourite one. Let's go to worst, and back again to you, Sky.
So, my favorite moments of this episode are the character moments. My least favorite are anything having to do with the plot and the techno battle. And I thought the dialogue was especially like
Yeah, it's
really
painful.
clumsy in this episode. I wrote down a line when Janeway and B'Elanna are in the shuttle, and Janeway says, "This is an actual line of dialogue. All right, let's open this hole in the ice a little wider." And she says it like it's the most serious, like, Just
There
come
are
on.
so
like,
many metaphors when her and B'Elanna are going through like the plan. This is like a fist. We could punch through it. Yes, like a hole that we could tear open.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, we'll break it down. Yeah.
But Lana keeps saying, "Oh, the crack is not wide enough. We need to make the crack wider." Like, come on. It just like
Yeah.
It's especially tortured because the initial metaphor is really good, where she's talking about imagine you're sitting on the bottom of a pond with the top frozen over. It's like that's a really cool image that requires you to think about what that looks like, and it's a cool visual metaphor. And then they immediately start throttling it in its sleep.
and Tom's dialogue really ruined that moment too, where he's like,
Yeah.
"All right, let me get this straight. I don't understand."
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
rough. All of that, all of the above.
Okay. Shai, how about you?
Maybe it's Harry Kim in the endless corridor being relegated to ship gossip monger and headache victim. It's like, that's not what I heard, Tuvok. I heard that McKee were having some problems on the ship. But you didn't hear it from me. Oh,
Telling that to the guy that's responsible for the security of the ship. Like,
Yeah, that was a
you're not
really
wrong.
sudden onset headache.
yeah. All the hallway scenes were not great in this episode. Like, Chakotay doesn't really get to do his sexy brooding thing, and nothing works.
Stars.
I have to say, almost all of Chakotay's scenes in this episode kind of really fell flat because, like, you can already see that Robert Beltran is kind of like tuning out a little bit because I'm pretty sure he's reading the scripts, for the next few seasons. He's like, okay, so like we're just gonna completely start paring back the actual rebellious nature of my character, all this Native American mumbo jumbo, which I'm pretty sure is not accurate to actual Native American religious practices, and he was probably right about that. And there's just something about his, and I mentioned this during the watch along, but I'm very certain that half the reason he signed on was because he wanted to act with Genevieve Bujold, who was going to be the original Nicole Janeway, and then obviously that fell through because she wasn't suited for the role. And it seems to have almost immediately taken a hit to his enthusiasm because a lot of his line reads are very flat. They are very just like I could see someone like Jonathan Frakes like delivering something with some real cut, like say like Riker in The Price when he's talking to Devononi Ral and he's like talking about she can like be with you and I would be the happiest man ever, but just like actually sell me on that concept. Or that conversation with Shelby in The Best of Both Worlds where he just fucking slices through her, right?
Yeah.
But Beltran just undersells almost every line that he's given here. And about the only like good moment that he has is when he's like dramatically leaning in just before a turbo lift closes. Like that's the only like moment where I was
nearly
like,
get his
okay,
nose
that's
chopped
that's
off.
fairly fun.
He's that
Or
close
he's
to the
doing
walls.
he's doing very quiet film acting, right? And maybe that's why he was looking forward to working with Bujold so much because he thought it doesn't work when you're just like flat lit on a TV show. If you're in a movie and the camera's really in your face and picking up every little nuance, that sort of acting can work. Then that's what you need. You need that small acting, but not on Star Trek.
Yeah, definitely not on Star Trek.
How
about you,
Not
Idle?
then.
So there's one moment that just sticks out. You guys have already kind of mentioned the ones that I would have picked, but there's one moment where I think Taurus has finally exuberated her talents, and Janeway agrees, and Chakotay looks over at Janeway, and Janeway looks at Chakotay, and all that's missing is a wink and a thumbs up at that moment where they just like, and I was like, it's the very typical da, 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 TV moment. It's like, yeah, and a nod, and like then credits roll, and it's it's family values kind of thing going on. And, it's just that kind of like, you didn't need to do that. That could have been a conversation. So like, and Chakotay should have come out and smug, so like, haha, I was right, yeah, okay, but no, it's just a wink and a nod and a smile and a hey. Yeah, I didn't like that. That was not great.
I thought you were going to say port and starboard.
Oh, that was awful as
Yeah,
well.
so awful.
That was
Yeah.
pretty bad.
Can I also give a runner-up to the general concept of Tom Paris can do everything?
Oh yeah, but
Yeah.
that no one studied chemistry on the ship other than Tom Paris.
Are you telling me that Captain Janeway didn't take any of those fucking classes? She's
She's the captain. She can't be the medic. She can't be sort of sideline and healing people. She's the captain.
That made no sense. They made
pilot,
it look like she
fine.
had done all this research. She had like the manifest. She had like every crew's background, and then she's like, Tom, I see you right there. You do it.
It's like, you.
You have been given this backstory upgrade.
Meanwhile, Harry at the back with all his diplomas and he's like acing all of Starfleet Academy is like, whew, thank fuck for that.
Yeah.
I just get to sit here and press buttons. That's fine. All right. I think it is time, stars, for our rating of the week. What pseudonym are we giving this rating?
All right, how many highly tasty, hot or cold, unknown taste mugs of Pajuta out of 10 would you, ladies and gentlemen, give this episode?
Shy.
I'll give it a 7. You know. You think that's high? Is that too high?
Wow. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I mean, you do you. Like.
Well, because it's harmless. Like, it's passing, right? 70 is a passing grade. At least here in the States. I know you guys have educational standards over there. But, you know. Yeah, it's fine. It's a fine second episode. You know, we've seen other not so successful second episodes of this franchise. And, you know, this accomplishes most of what it's trying to do. Like, they need an engineer. You know, Janeway is not going to make Picard's mistake and just not find a perfect chief engineer for an entire season. Like she's like, you know, let's just get that taken care of now. Second episode, I can't deal with this engineer like roulette for an entire season. So she gets it done.
Okay,
7.
Sky.
I'm gonna give it a 4.
Wow.
Oh, man.
Oh. See, I brought you
Because
on
I
to get the
think
Voyager ratings up. Like, what's going on?
Well, because I think of 5 or 6 being average, right?
Okay.
I do feel like this was a below average for me episode. I didn't feel like the actual plot with the singularity, I didn't find that interesting at all. I never like felt any kind of like dramatic tension or anything on getting that resolved. It had a lot of good things to say about it. I like the character moments, but overall it just fell a little flat for me.
Okay. Stars.
I would give this episode 5.5 milk toast jugs of Pajuta out of 10. It really is just like determinedly average in my mind. Like, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's like perfectly okay way to spend 45 minutes, but like I can think of everything this episode does well. I can think of another episode that does it like 3 or 4 times as well, and everything this episode does badly, I can think of episodes that do it, you know, way more entertainingly, or I could think of ones that do it badly as well, but are more entertaining in their badness. There's just a lot of like, yeah, we're gonna have conversations about shit, and we're gonna establish things that'll be more interesting in like 20 episodes, like going on. It's just a lot of kind of busy work, and I understand that busy work has to be done, but there's a more interesting way to do it. Like, even I wasn't a massive fan of DS9's second episode. But even that one, I was like, okay, yeah, there's an actual character conflict here. There's stuff going on. Enterprise's second episode. Again, a lot of the Berman era Trek, there's always a second episode that's a little bit limp, but it's doing busy work and following on from the first episode. But this one was just very much like, there sure is a ship that things are happening on. I don't think... This could have taken place in TNG with serial numbers filed off, and I wouldn't really have noticed a massive difference, honestly. And it's like,
using the battle, the battle conference room.
And so, yeah, the strong moments are relatively decent. Like the Torres and the Janeway moments are great, and it establishes those characters out of the gate. But it just doesn't do the series itself a ton of favors. No one is ever going to say that Parallax is their favorite episode of Star Trek, are they? And it's not even going to make anyone's top 300, I don't think. You know, it's like that kind of determinedly middle of the road. That sure was a 45-minute span of entertainment I watched. How about you, Idle?
I'm going to go with a 6. I was going to say it's 7, but I think I've definitely been talked. You've talked. That's why I like going last. I can assess it. I can assess the room. But I think I've been talked down a little bit. Yeah, I think you're right. I think there is a concept in here of a good idea. I like episodes of spatial anomalies, no matter how many times they do that. If they're going to run it 500 times or do an entire season about it, you know, that's absolutely fine by me. I think where this was let down was the actual execution with the port and starboard jargon. Is it the port ship? No, it's the starboard ship, because the starboard ship ship doesn't have the port ship's nacelle structure, and the whole kind of like, you know, punching through quantum, you know, you like the quote from Rick Berman says, we just chuck quantum on it and you know, ran with it. You know, could have been anything, and I think that's kind of that's where it lets it down. Also, yeah, there's a few bad moments here, but there is a core concept here that is great, and there's some good character moments, which is just, I think, I've just spoiled from knowing, you know, if I was watching this for the first time, I'd be like, wow, I can't wait to see how they develop this Marquis relationship, but I know better. So yeah, it's a 6. It's a 6. I enjoyed it. I think I viewed it, I watched it, I enjoyed it. It's a typical Star Trek episode, like, and I think that sits middle of the, you know, like you say, it's average and a little bit more, you know, it's there, it's not the worst. It's something I would show my children and not be completely embarrassed by it.
If you wanted to send them to sleep, yes.
Oh, actually, yes.
Yeah, I wonder if I'm rating it as 7 because I generally, sorry, Sky, I was not a huge fan of Voyager.
A lot of people aren't.
Yeah, I'm still not a huge fan of Voyager, so I'm rating this relative to how I probably feel about the rest of the series. Plus, I was really disappointed. I thought Parallax was going to be about. It was the episode where Hal Jordan kills all the other Green Lanterns and steals their rings. Like a Green Lantern, but I guess that's not what this episode is.
Is there a DC crossover? I don't remember that. I know there's some Voyager.
I do wonder how I would have rated this if I had just seen it.
Yeah.
Because I remember vividly when I first watched Voyager being so excited about that Maquis Starfleet conflict. And there are still echoes of that in this episode. They haven't completely demolished it. So I think I probably, if I were watching it for the first time, I think I probably would have been more enthused.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I mean. I think as a second episode for a first-time watcher, it's actually a solid second episode.
I can see that, yeah. In retrospect, it's less. So this is kind of apropos of nothing, but it kind of springing off of what you just said. True or false? Oh god, what is it? Worst case scenario and Shattered are the actual best episodes about the Marquis in Voyager.
Worst case scenario. What was Shattered? Which one was that? Was that the?
That's the one where the ship is broken into the different time periods.
Was that the really bad one, or was that Twisted?
No, that
Twisted is the bad one.
No, Twisted is the bad one. I don't think I remember Shattered.
Is walking through different time periods.
Right. No, I think my Voyager.
He's got his
Yeah, my Voyager knowledge is terrible.
Bandolier.
Like, yeah.
Right. Isn't that the Killing Game?
It's got old
Oh no, you're talking about the Chakotay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I need to.
It was the let's do all good things in an episode because we run out of ideas.
Awesome. Well,
I think that the worst Maquis episode is the one with the training.
Oh, I
of like
that
the bullying
one.
guy.
I like that one.
Ooh,
Learning Curve?
I thought Learning Curve was alright.
Because that just completely.
Where's Otto? Jump in here, Otto.
Is he a fan of that one?
I think he really likes Tuvok's part of it. Yeah.
Oh, that just completely establishes like how
Mm-hmm.
thoroughly Starfleet has dominated the Maquis and kind of humiliates the Maquis crew members in a way that I find like really disrespectful and like just not true to the characters.
Well, it's just very drill sergeant-y, which is like never the thing I liked about Starfleet. Starfleet always seemed way more accepting of like difference rather than I'm going to grind you into the dirt type thing. Like that was never my read on them further. Yeah.
Wait, which one is the one where the Holo program for Tuvok's contingency plan to deal with McKee?
That's worst case scenario.
That's worst case scenario.
That episode's amazing. That's
fantastic.
That's a good one.
That's like in my top 10 of Voyager episodes. It makes me laugh every time. It makes me smile every time I see it. It's great.
Really good.
All right. Thank you, Sky, for joining us this week. Absolute pleasure to
Thank
have
you for having me
on. And thank you, Shai and Stars. For,
every time we
doing
can have you on, it's great.
Absolutely.
Aww.
Yes, please.
Please
Thank you.
continue to join us on our Voyager watch through. And if you want to watch any other
I'll
episodes,
change Shai's mind eventually.
yeah, we'll get there. We'll be sick of each other by Endgame.
Are we not watching Voyager on this watch through? Is that how you're gonna change?
Watching everything. We're doing everything. We're exploring. We're doing a trek among the trek. That's the
You know what I'm looking forward to? Voyager made so little of an impression on me that even though I've rewatched the series multiple times, I always forget episodes. I'm like, have I seen this episode before? I know I've seen this episode. Ooh. What is this episode?
It's like seeing a brand new episode all over again.
It kind of is, yeah. I think I watched through Voyager all of like once or twice, but usually I was doing something else, or I was just my memory's terrible. So like, but yeah, I'm looking forward to watching more of it. But no, thank you guys for joining us. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with the Enterprise second episode. I believe it's called, is it Strange New Worlds, or no, Fight or Flight. That one, I believe. We'll be back next time with that. If you want to watch our watch along, please go and subscribe to our Twitch channel and join the Discord. Link them all up, and you'll have a whole plethora of watch alongs that we do. You can view, and I'm going to be releasing a first of our few for free very soon. I'm going to be doing our pilots. I'm going to release them on YouTube proper. So look forward to seeing those. You can check out our channel on if you want to watch us live. Please come and check us on Twitch, twitch.tv/TrekTime, and if you want to join the Discord where we talk about all things Trek, and yes, we go into this much detail as well, bit.ly/Trek_time. Please come and join us, and we will see you in a couple of weeks or other things on the channel. If you haven't already seen it as well, check out Sky on Pros and Cons, where she debates against Genos, and well, I won't spoil it for you, but it is she's got a smile on her face for a reason. We will see you soon. Live long and prosper, and ta-ra.